My name is Rashad and this is my sister Shreya. So Ushaji and Srinivas Tata, thank you for letting us perform today and congrats on your book launch.
Wow.
Our first piece will be playing together and it's called Pagodas by the Heavenly Lake. Next, I'll be playing Minuet number 3 by Bach. And finally, I'll be playing Presto by Kamarovsky.
with a little gift for you before you go off the stage. Thank you so much for providing such a beautiful entertainment. Good afternoon. Witam Państwa bardzo serdecznie. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all, and I would like to offer a warm welcome to our very special guests this afternoon. Professor Jonathan Bland Hawthorne and with his wife Sue, Helen Lane, Rajani and Pavan Luthra, Anu Shivaran, Professor Frank Nicholas and Tom Cohen, who are with us this afternoon at the Polish Club Ashfield at this very exciting book launch with the author Sydney Srinivas, celebrating the life and legacy of Marie Curie Skłodowska, a Polish woman of brilliance, perseverance and unbreakable spirit in his latest book, Marie Curie. So, welcome everybody. Before we proceed further, I would like to ask one of the club's directors, Daniel Bulkonowicz, to say a few words. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Mrs. Elmore has said, my name is Daniel. I'm one of the directors here at the board at the Polish Club. And on behalf of the board, I'd like to warmly welcome you to this event. It's a pleasure to see so many new faces in the room, many of you here likely for the first time. The Polish Club is a wonderful place, and it is a place for everyone. And we hope you take the opportunity to explore our wonderful club while you're here. Feel free to enjoy some of the delicious food and beverages we have available at our restaurant, deli and bar, all of which will be open immediately after this event. And we hope you'll return to the club for the many events we have throughout the year. Today's event is one that we've certainly been eagerly anticipating. Marie Curie is undoubtedly one of the most famous and important Polish people in the 1,000-long-year history of Poland. It's only fitting that such a remarkable work dedicated to her life and legacy is being launched right here at the Polish Club in Ashfield. A heartfelt thank you to the author, Mr. Sydney Srinivas, for choosing the Polish Club as a venue for this very special occasion. We're truly delighted to have you here, Sydney, and it is my great pleasure on behalf of the board to officially welcome you and all our wonderful guests here to the club. Thank you.
So I would like to now invite Chitra to begin this special book launch this afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. We pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. My name is Chitra, and I'm so honored and privileged to introduce you to some of the distinguished guests that we have amongst us here today. We will commence with a couple of video messages. The first one will be from Dr. Pierre Anhuri. He's a doctor by qualification. Dr. Anhuri was the public relations officer at the Institute Curie in Paris. That is the institute Marie Curie established about 100 years ago. Now he is the French government expert in Lebanon. So can we please have the video messages up? Thank you.
Dear Sydney, I was the head of international relations of Institut Curie when you contacted me. You explained that you are spending your retirement exploring the life of genius, and you decided to write the life of Newton, of Einstein, of Marie Curie and others. And for Marie Curie, you decided to come to Paris, to visit her lab, to meet her family, to explore the details of her life. And you visited us in the museum, in her classroom, where we took this picture, and you wrote this fantastic book. This is a very unique book, because it's her life, but it's also full of anecdotes and secrets nobody shared before. So I wanted to thank you for this. This is really a gift. We are actually sharing with many people, and you are opening our eyes on the real life of Marie Curie. Thank you.
Thank you for that message. Next on our list of guests is Dr. Barbara Golubiowska. Dr. Barbara is the director of Maria Skłodowska-Curie Museum in Warsaw, Poland. Now this museum is special because the museum is housed in 18th century tenement house where Marie Curie herself was born. It was opened in 1967. To add to her repertoire, Dr. Barbara is also a secretary of the board of Forum of Museum Educators Association, and here's the message from her.
Dear Professor, distinguished guests, my name is Barbara Golubiowska and I am the director of Maria Skłodowska Museum in Warsaw. Our museum is located in a place where in 1867, in a loving teacher's family, Maria was born as one of the 5 siblings. It was quite a dark time for Poland. Poland was then divided between 3 partitioning powers, Russia, Prussia and Austria-Hungary. And it was really hard for Maria, brought up in a very patriotic family, to live with a Russian oppression in school and in social life. But she completed elementary education here in Poland and also gymnasium. But then, to study, she had to set out on a journey to Paris because it was impossible for women in those times to study in Warsaw. So she was born in Poland, but her great achievements, scientific achievements, took place in France. And now Maria, we could say, is a worldwide known person and scientist. And that is why I am very, very happy with all the initiatives that commemorates Maria all over the world. And one of these initiatives is Professor Srinivas' book about Maria Skłodowska-Curie. Last year in 2024, Professor was our guest and he held the author's talk here in our museum. And I am very grateful, Mr. Professor, for your book and thank you for your stay here in Warsaw. Today is another author's talk on the other part of the world, far away from Warsaw, but I am very happy to be able to connect with you in this way, and I would like to wish you a very, very interesting and nice event, and of course I would like to invite you to Warsaw and to our museum. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Dr. Anne-Marie and Dr. Barbara, for those wonderful, heartfelt video messages. Next, I'd like to invite Helen Line. Helen Line is well-versed in writing short stories and poems. She is known for her performance poems and has published anthologies of short stories. Helen is the retired deputy principal of a private school in Sydney. She is a member of the Open Genre Group of Writers New South Wales since 2006 and actively participates in its proceedings. Srinivas has also been a member of the group since 2011, and he has pointed out that most of his books, including this one on Marie Curie, have been read and discussed in the group's meetings. So may I please request Helen to speak about the book. Thank you.
Thank you, Chitra. Srinivas, Usha, Jonathan, Ewelina, Rajni, Anu, and invited guests. In education systems in Australia, students could and still can give up the study of science at the end of year 10. I did, and the Polish-British mathematician and philosopher Bronowski would probably have called me semi-educated. I'm therefore delighted that my name appears in the prefaces of Srinivas's biographies of Einstein, Newton, Darwin, and his latest, Marie Curie. Srinivas read those biographies at the weekly meetings of the Open Genre Writers Group under the auspices of Writing New South Wales. Jack, Ayla, David and Andrew, our former and current conveners of the group, they're here today, and other members of the group are here too. We're an open genre group. Members write fiction, children's stories, poetry, satire, plays, memoir, history, all sorts of things. We have to contend with genre that we wouldn't normally read. I doubt, for instance, that Srinivas normally reads true romance. The aim of the group is to provide feedback on the work of our members. If we don't understand something, we say so. Srinivas assured us from the very beginning that he writes for the general reader, not for people with specific scientific background. And over the 3 years that he read to us from his biography of Marie Curie, it was a pleasure for me to hear and understand the explanations, or his explanations, of scientific concepts. In a sweeping and unscientific generalization, I'll say that most fairly well-educated Australians know a little about Marie Curie. She discovered radium. She won the Nobel Prize. Well, actually, she won 2. She died from handling radium, and her name was French, therefore she's French. The book, as has already been mentioned, has all sorts of interesting snippets, and I quote from page 58. Pierre, her husband, was a dedicated teacher, and one afternoon he got busy working out a problem with 2 of his brilliant students in a classroom on the 2nd floor. When they wanted to leave the building, they found it locked from the outside. So the 3 went out through the window and slid down the drain pipe. Mad scientists. No mad scientists here today, alas. Marie's personal life was full of sorrow and passion. Pierre was killed in the street, and by, I quote again, a 30-foot wagon carrying military clothing pulled by 2 percherons. Their daughter Irene was 9, Eve was 16 months old. Marie's professional life was studded with humiliations. She was refused membership of the French Academy of Sciences, and I quote again from Srinivas's book, "An anonymous scientist decried her nomination, saying, Madame Curie had done nothing in physics before her marriage, and since her husband's death, she hadn't done anything alone." Srinivas writes with sympathy, respect, and fairness, not like that anonymous scientist. In 1910, Marie and Pierre's former student, physicist Paul Langevin, started a love affair. The scandal was huge. Paul was married. His wife publicly threatened to kill Marie. The lovers' letters were published in the newspapers. The newspapers went wild. And I quote again, "Down with the foreigner, down with the husband stealer." The scandal caused difficulties for Marie to attend the Nobel Prize ceremony in Stockholm in 1911. Then, in the First World War, the French embraced her as a heroine. There was a shortage of X-ray machines for hospitals treating wounded soldiers. Marie put together a mobile radiography unit, raised 700,000 francs, built 18 units herself, and stationed her unit 32 kilometres from the front line at Compiègne. She was a scientist, wife, mother, educator, heroine, and lover. Goodness knows what she would have thought of the word feminist. Srinivas doesn't use the word feminist in his biography, but from reading it, I do. The book is full of tension, drama, sorrow, passion, courage, discrimination, and science. And our group read it first. Now you can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. Who among the Indian community in Sydney and Melbourne hasn't heard of Indian Link? The esteemed publication, both in print and online, has been a vital part of our lives for the last 30 years, winning numerous awards along the way. Among its many contributors, Srinivas has made a notable impact with his insightful reviews on music and dance and more. Today, we are honoured to have with us the driving forces behind Indian Link, the illustrious Rajni and Pavan Luthra. To shed more light on Srinivas's contributions, I now invite Rajni to take the stage and share a few words.
As I was just saying, Helen's a hard act to follow. Pavan and I are so pleased to be here today, Dr. Srinivas, at the launch of your latest book, Marie Curie. So fittingly, it is here at the Polish Club for a daughter of Poland, an Indian writer writing about a Polish personality, launching it at a Polish institution with many Polish people in the audience. What a wonderful example of diversity. Yes. Diversity is... Thank you. It is a word that's fast becoming unfashionable, so I wanted to make sure that I use the word diversity today. Congratulations, Dr. Srinivas, and thank you to you and Usha ji for having us. It's wonderful to see you continuing your work on scientists, focusing this time on one of the best known women scientists in the world, the first to win a Nobel Prize, as Helen reminded us, the first to have won it twice, the only woman to have won it twice, and one of only 66 women to have ever won it. I've had a quick look through just now, and I'm pleased to see that Dr. Srinivas brings to it the gravitas he brings to all his writing, with which we are so familiar at Indian Link. His writings in Indian Link are, of course, in a different genre altogether. They are in the arts. And it is this multiplicity about today's author that amazes me. He's equally proficient and prolific in writing both about arts and science. On the arts side, which he bombards us with on a regular basis in Indian Link, he brings an absolute dignity to his performance reviews. That quality has seen him become a quiet but strong critic in our classical community. Thorough and objective, his scientific attitude cuts through in his essays on music and dance. We are deeply grateful for your contributions, Dr. Srinivas, having done so much for so long in helping us to lift our standards as a trustworthy publication. On the science side, many of us here have been at Dr. Srinivas's previous book launches or have read his works on Charles Darwin, Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, and his namesake, Srinivasa Ramanujan. All stalwarts, they may be old masters, but they have tremendous contemporary relevance. We've seen in recent times the rise of a movement away from scientific thought, such as the anti-vaccination drive during the pandemic, the over-reliance on traditional medicine, and overnight, the news coming in that the leading democracy in the world is looking to cut funding to medical and scientific research. We live in times when we should be reading more of the old masters and the old scientists who gave us things that we now take so much for granted. So thank you for your work, Dr. Srinivas. It was Marie Curie who herself said, "Nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less." These words, uttered over 100 years ago, still ring true today. And yet, we live in times, and Professor Marie Curie would be pleased to learn this, when we have finally begun to celebrate women in STEM in baby steps, after she herself had to fight for recognition of her own work. For far too long, women in science have gone unnoticed, brushed under the carpet, such as the black female mathematicians who made America's space program possible. Even Jennifer Doudna, who won the Nobel as recently as 2020 for her work in gene code breaking, was told, "Women do not go into science." In this regard, I am proud to note the contributions women scientists of my own background have begun to make. We've celebrated fittingly the Indian women in Vikram, India's moon landing, and closer home to us, a superstar from our own community, the fabulous Professor Veena Sahajwala, who is the flag bearer for women in STEM in this country, and who was given the rare AO honor only a fortnight ago on Australia Day. Late last year, when the long list was announced for Australia's National Women in STEM Annual Awards, Indian Link was astounded by the number of Indian Australian women that appeared on that list, and I checked the number of European women, Eastern European women that were mentioned on that list. I'm sure many of them were Polish. I'm sorry, I couldn't tell this. Perhaps unbeknownst to them, or perhaps known to them, they owe so much to Marie Curie, who forged that early path. But back to the star of the day, Dr. Srinivas. A fascinating anecdote stands out. When holidaying in England a few years ago, one of his tours, as a scientist, not surprisingly, was to the home of Isaac Newton, the home where the great scientist lived in his childhood, and where also he came up with his seminal work that changed the course of science. It's now a museum, and Dr. Srinivas presented to it his own work on Newton. Later, he casually mentioned to the staff that he has also written about Newton in the Kannada language. The staff replied, "Oh, we already have that book. Come, let's show you." And they led him to a place where his Kannada book sits in all its glory. What a wonderful tribute to a writer. We look forward to seeing your latest book on Professor Curie in many of our libraries. And I've written here that I hope it also makes its way to the Maria Sklodowska-Curie Museum in Warsaw. But as we've just learned, it's already there. Thank you very much, Dr. Srinivas.
Thank you, Rajani, for that amazing speech. Next on our guest list is Mrs. Anu Shivram. Almost every Indian in this room probably knows popular Anu Shivram. Being a writer herself, she enjoys reading literature in Kannada, English, Hindi, and Sanskrit. Silver Lining, a book with short stories, and Anumati, her blog, are her published accomplishments. She is also Vice President of charity organization Vision 2020. A teacher by profession, she has also produced plays and features in Kannada and acted in them. Many of you are aware that Srinivas has authorized many books, stories, and articles in Kannada, his mother tongue. The book about Marie Curie is also written in Kannada. Anu Shivram will say a few words about this book now.
Thank you, Sujata. Namaste and good afternoon to everyone here. My heartiest congratulations to Professor Srinivas on presenting his twin babies to the world. I call them twin babies because they're an enriching contribution to the world of science and also to the world of literature. They make good books just as a good read, and they're also based on science and the life of a scientist, an amazing scientist. And I also call them twins because they're in two languages, Kannada and English. Kannada is a 1,600-year-old language from the southwestern part of India, from the state of Karnataka, and it's spoken by about 44 million people. And this happens to be Professor Srinivas's mother tongue. And I quote him, "Kannada comes from my heart and English comes from my brain," unquote. So when a writer writes from its heart, the book in English and Kannada is the same content and the same style. There's nothing different. Word to word, it's a translation of either from Kannada to English. I like to think it's from Kannada to English. But there is an intimacy, an added emotional connection in the Kannada language, where the author calls Marie Curie Avulu Bandu, Avulu Hodlu, as though she is a dear friend, as though she's a sister, while narrating her life. And then there is also a certain poignancy about it when he discusses the scandals, how she was victimized for no fault of hers, and you can feel that more in Kannada. I've read both the versions, and I'm partial towards the Kannada version of it. Now, coming to language, I have a little story to tell. Once there was a scholar. He was a polyglot. He knew many languages, and his USP was that he could speak in each language with the same authority, the same accent, enunciation, diction, and fluency like a native speaker. So he went from one royal court to the other, challenging people to identify his mother tongue. And nobody could. He was so thorough, so good, and people failed. Eventually he came to Hampi, the capital of Vijayanagara Empire, ruled by the mighty Krishnadevaraya. And there, in the court of Krishnadevaraya, was Tenali Rama, one of the 9 gems of Krishnadevaraya, and he accepted the challenge immediately. He was not perturbed at all. All he did was take the scholar to the royal guest house, feed him well, gave him a sumptuous Kannada lunch, and then let him take a siesta. So while he was sleeping, Tenali Rama went there and loudly yelled, "How, Nagar, how?" That means snake, snake, a deadly snake. The scholar woke up with a jolt and said, "Engida, Pamb Engida." That means, where is the snake? Where is the snake? And revealed his mother tongue, which was Tamil. So the language is within us. The mother tongue is within us, and I won't be wrong if I say it's part of our DNA. It's there within us, and when it comes out, it brings an extra dimension to the writing and to the reader also when he reads it. Now, to quote a personal anecdote, Professor Srinivas was in India recently, and he was kind enough to visit my elderly mother. She's 90 and a very keen student of science. She's done her biochemistry herself. And he presented her the book. She read it end to end. And then she has a carer and a young boy, a 15-year-old boy living with her. She passed on the book to the young boy and gave him some introduction about the Nobel Prize, the significance of the Nobel Prize, and how Marie Curie was the first ever woman to win this prize, not once but twice in 2 different fields, physics and chemistry. So she explained, gave him a background. The boy was hooked on, he read it, he's 15. He read the whole book end to end, and then he came and said, "Ajji, nangu Mary Madam hange enadru madakase, elrigu sahaya madakase." Grandma, I want to become like Madam Marie Curie. I want to do something that will help mankind. What better reward can an author expect than to spark this in a young mind? He's a first generation learner. His mother is almost illiterate. She has managed to learn how to sign. And this boy says he is inspired by the book and he wants to do something. When we talk of brain drain, we think of bright young minds from the IITs and the IIScs of India going overseas to live and work, and we think that's brain drain. The actual brain drain is when, due to the barriers of language and opportunities, that children in rural, remote areas cannot access knowledge. That is real brain drain. And I hope this book will start a series of filling such gaps, where young children, youngsters from rural areas who know their mother tongue can read in that and respond to that and be inspired by that. Language should not be a barrier, and with books like this, it will not be henceforth. And I wish that this book is available in every library in Karnataka. Actually, one of Professor Srinivas's friends has started this, where he has bought 100 books to be distributed in a certain district, in Kolar district in Karnataka, to every library. I hope we will all pick up a clue from this and just donate 1 book to the library, to a library in your own hometown, where people can read it, especially for people of Karnataka. I congratulate Usha Srinivas, the proverbial strong woman behind the successful man, and I also, on behalf of Srinivas's family and friends across the globe, congratulate him on this stupendous achievement and wish him happy, healthy years ahead, where he's going to write many more such inspiring books. Jyot se jyot jaga ke chalo, prem ki ganga baha ke chalo, deepa dinda deepava hachi nade, prema da gangeya harasi nade. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu Shivram. We have now come to the main event of the book launch, the actual book launch itself. And I have the absolute pleasure of introducing Professor Jonathan Bland Hawthorne, who is a brilliant astrophysicist. He is an ARC Federation Fellow Professor at the Sydney Institute for Astronomy and at the School of Physics at University of Sydney. He is also the Director of Sydney Institute for Astronomy. Born in England, he is an alumnus of the Royal Greenwich Observatory. He was formerly at the Australian Astronomical Observatory, and he's been a professor in many places around the world. In 2012, he was elected Fellow of the Australian Academy of Science and the Optical Society of America. He has won numerous awards and serves on several boards, including Section H, IAU, and the annual reviews of astronomy and astrophysics in the USA. He has delivered numerous lectures for academics and the public. He has authored many books and articles to popularize science. We are also very pleased to have Sue, Mrs. Hawthorne, in the audience with us today, and we extend a warm welcome to her. Aren't we so lucky that the professor was able to be with us here today at the book launch and to launch the book as well? Please give them a round of applause and warmly welcome them. So may I please request him to launch the book and say a few words. Please welcome him on stage.
Let me just embarrass my wife for 1 second. Women in Science, she's within 2 weeks of submitting her PhD in medical research. I must say before I start, I'm conscious of being the least well dressed in the entire presentation. Beautiful saris and so forth, but in Srinivas, it was your fault. I got out of the car with a jacket, and he said, "No, this is Australia, you don't need a jacket." The trouble is, my reading glasses were inside the jacket. So, anyway, my wife has lent me hers, hopefully that'll work. Different power. We'll see how that goes. The Polish club for this event is absolutely the right place. I'm an enormous fan of Polish science, Polish mathematics, enormous fan of Marie Curie, and of course, our author here tonight, which is why I'm here. So, let me start by saying to honored guests, esteemed author, Srinivas, and your brilliant researcher, Usha, who I think is here somewhere. Where's Usha? You're hiding? You're over here? Oh, how... If you read Srinivas's books, you'll know about his researcher, colleague, and friend in all his journeys around the world, which is a very important aspect of what he does in researching his books. Let me start by saying that Brian Schmidt sent some lovely words. He is this country's most famous scientist, Nobel laureate in physics, so in a sense, 100 years on from Marie Curie. He has a Nobel Prize as well. He was the Vice Chancellor of the ANU up until recently. But as you can imagine, he is always traveling, and if he had had a free moment, he would love to have been here, and wished you all the best for your book launch. So I would like to say that I have always known about Marie Curie since I was very young. I've always been inspired by science stories and science biographies, science writing. As Sue will attest, one of the most regular books I read, it makes me a bit of a geek I suppose, is books about science biographies. I've read so many over the years. And in fact, Srinivas very kindly has been giving me copies of your books for over the last decade or so. I remember in particular Ramanujan and Newton. They were wonderful, wonderful books. Anyway, let me start by saying a few words. In fact, so much has already been said by the previous brilliant presenters. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today to celebrate the launch of this book on one of the greatest scientific minds in history, Marie Curie. Her remarkable journey is one of deep intellect, superhuman perseverance, sheer determination, and scientific revolution. And of course, this book has come from the hands of a scientist turned science writer, biographer, Professor Sydney Srinivas, whose career in aerospace and computational fluid dynamics has now transformed into a passion for bringing stories of legendary scientists to the world. Having written biographies on great minds like Ramanujan, a marvelous book, Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, he has masterfully woven science with storytelling, making these figures accessible to readers of all backgrounds. More of that in a moment. Sydney, by the way, if you don't know, was deputy head of the School of Aerospace, Mechanical and Mechatronic Engineering, University of Sydney. He retired about 13 years ago, I guess, and he was also chairman of the International Conference of Computational Fluid Dynamics, held in Sydney in 2002. This is a field where Australia has always done extremely well. It's a very brilliant, very difficult field to compete in, but Srinivas was very effective competing in that field. So this book, written by Sydney Srinivas, this is research carried out worldwide. This is one of the wonderful things about Srinivas's books, is that they are brought to you in a very personal way. He and Usha travel the world, finding letters, photographs, speaking with people with personal knowledge, which I think brings a really personal touch to his beautiful books. Marie Curie was not just a scientist. She was a force of nature, a woman who, in an era when science was largely a man's domain, dared to dream beyond those limits. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, the only person to win 2 Nobel Prizes in physics, male or female, and a pioneer whose discoveries in radioactivity paved the way for modern physics, medicine, and countless technological advances. But Curie's legacy is not just in her discoveries. And by the way, I believe there were 4 Nobel Prizes awarded to her family over the years, wasn't it? 5 people, children and marriages through marriage. I think there were in fact 4 Nobels awarded to the Marie Curie family. Quite an extraordinary legacy. Unbelievable. Put smile in the shade. Anyway, but Curie's legacy is not just in her discoveries, it's in her spirit of inquiry, her relentless pursuit of knowledge, and her refusal to be bound by convention. She worked in difficult and often terrible conditions. I've been to the lab, which is over by the École Normale Supérieure in Paris. It's very dire when you look at what she had to suffer. When you compare now to modern labs, which are so beautiful, well-lit and sparkling white labs. She worked in difficult, often terrible conditions. She faced skepticism. She faced skepticism not just for being a woman, but just for the science that she was pursuing. She was blazing an incredible new trail into atomic structure, nuclear activity, radioactivity, and so on. She had much personal tragedy, but somehow or other she survived and remained devoted to science. This book, I would say more than anything else, is a tribute to that spirit, Marie Curie's incredible, indomitable spirit. It's even more special because it was written by an Indian science writer. In a world where we need more voices making science accessible, one of our previous speakers, Rashdi, talked about this, about the problem we have today in the lack of belief in science and politicians who want to somehow suppress the message from science for their own private reasons, like climate change and medical procedures. So in a world where we need more voices making science accessible, this book serves as an inspiration for students, for young scientists, and curious minds across India and beyond. In a time when science and technology shape our future, we need more storytellers who can make science not just understandable, but also exciting. Marie Curie's story is not just a history lesson, it's a call to action. A reminder that knowledge, determination, and passion can change our world. This book is special because it does more than narrate her life. It also explains the science behind her work in a way that's simple, engaging, and accessible to everyone. This is what makes it stand apart. It brings complex scientific concepts to life without overwhelming the reader, ensuring that both students and general readers can appreciate the depth of Marie Curie's contributions. Adding to its appeal, the book is richly illustrated with pictures and anecdotes that make Curie's journey vivid and real. I think that's a real reflection on you and Usha's travels, going to these locations, seeing where they were born and raised, schools they went to and so forth, finding these personal anecdotes, and these personal photographs make it also very, very real to the reader. Adding to its appeal, it's richly illustrated, as I said. Many of the images have been captured by the author himself during his pilgrimages around the world, visiting the very places associated with Curie and other great scientists. This personal connection adds authenticity and depth that few biographies can match. As you probably know, lots of these brilliant books that you buy today on bookshelves are written by teams of researchers. They're using PhDs, paid PhDs, to gather the material in which they then compile from the safety of their home in Mosman, Ashfield, wherever. But Srinivas, not Srinivas and Usha, they actually go to these places, which I think really, really helps the authenticity of the writing. Even more impressively, he writes in both English and Kannada, reaching a wide audience, including 40 to 60 million, depends which website you go to. Speakers, Kannada speakers around the world, in India and beyond. This dedication to communication is really impressive, to be writing in more than one language. It's hard enough for most of us to write in one language, but to do this in multiple languages is quite something. And I suspect your books will be translated into other languages. I mean, they're so readable and so beautiful. They should be. So to close, as we launch this book today, let us remember that science is not just about discoveries. It's about the people behind them, their struggles, and their triumphs. And through this book, Marie Curie's journey will continue to inspire generations of readers, young and old. We heard that from the previous speakers. So today, as we celebrate your wonderful book, let us also celebrate the power of science, the power of perseverance, and the power of those who tell these incredible stories. Congratulations to Srinivas for this remarkable contribution, and thank you all for being part of this special occasion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Hawthorne. Next up, we have the author's talk. I would like to invite Mr. Srinivas, as well as Evelina, who will facilitate the conversation, onto stage. But as we do that, and as the stage is getting set up, could I please ask that you turn your attention to a short video showcasing a Polish song by Chopin.
So nice.
hear me?
Oh, can you hear me now? Thank you so much. What a beautiful way to begin our short discussion, I suppose. An invitation to talk to you. This is a great pleasure and great honor. So again, Sydney, congratulations on your fabulous book. It's a lovely read, full of beautiful pictures, of a lot of detail for everyone to enjoy. So can I please ask you, let's begin our discussion and tell us from your perspective, why did you pick Maria Skłodowska-Curie for your subject of your book?
Yeah. Yes, Evelyn, this point has been brought out already. You know, Marie Curie's family had 5 people sharing 4 Nobel Prizes. She got a Nobel Prize along with her husband in physics first, and later she got a Nobel Prize in chemistry. And this is a very unique honor. Till now, no one has got a prize in physics and chemistry, even men included. But she got that. And then her daughter and first son-in-law got a Nobel Prize in chemistry. And her second son-in-law got a Nobel Prize for peace. So, I don't think there is any other family in this universe who shares this unique honor. That is number 1. Number 2, born in Poland in a very medium, not well-to-do family, and she wanted to do science. She wanted to be a physicist or a chemist, and she did it nothing worked for her, whether it is economics or social or anything you take, nothing worked for her. First thing, girls were not admitted into the university in Poland those days, and the girls had to go to Paris or St. Petersburg or Heidelberg to study, and she chose to go to Paris. And she didn't have money to pay the passage, and she traveled in the 4th class along with the baggage. She traveled with the baggage in the December cold for 44 hours and reached Paris. And even in Paris, people were not cooperative. They were very hostile. She was called a woman or a girl with a funny name, that's all. That was the title she had. But when she stood first for the university in physics, people started hating her. That's one thing. Number 2, she discovered radioactivity, a pioneering discovery, and of course then separated radium and other things. When the first Nobel Prize was to be given, her own professors did not nominate her for the prize, and it was Pierre Curie's initiative that made the Nobel Committee include Marie's name in the list. Her name was left out, and Nobel Prize would have been declared, but her husband insisted. And then, throughout her life, she was treated as a foreign woman of no importance. Even the citation for the first Nobel Prize, you should read that, you will understand how they didn't want to include her. But she worked against all odds, and in the end, of course, she won 2 Nobel Prizes, served in the army as a nurse for 4 years, and today her remains are in La Panthéon. That's the highest honor any French person could get. So that she achieved, and that when nothing supported her. So that's the greatness, and that's, I wanted to find out why and how of these things, and then the book came.
That's wonderful, because she was a powerful woman. a great example, and she is very relevant today. So maybe you can tell us why it's reading about her life. It's very relevant today, not only as a scientist, but also as a migrant, as a woman who experienced a lot of different challenges. So why is this relevant today?
No, I think I answered that.
Okay, yes, that she traveled, that she had all those difficulties, sure.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about your research. You travel yourself with your wife. You do your own research. Could you please tell us what was one of those
Now slowly I have begun to realize that people go on pilgrimage. It's very common, especially among Indians, to go to the temple towns and things like that. But to me, that's nothing. Science, go to a scientist's place is pilgrimage for me. And we have been to every author's house I have written upon, whether it be Newton, Darwin, or Einstein, and now Marie Curie and all that. So I go there. I go to number 16 Freta Street in Warsaw, that's where she was born. And as soon as I enter, I feel the vibration. I say, this is the place where Marie Curie was born. And what else do you want? That's a pilgrimage for me.
Of course.
And then I go to the Newton's house in Woolsthorpe Manor in UK, and I am led to a room where he did the famous light experiment. Right? I've seen the very room where he conducted that experiment, and what else do you want? And that was the room where he did the calculus as well.
So it's so important to...
So to me, that has become a pilgrimage. Right? And so whenever I want to write something or half written, I always make it a point to go to the place where that happened, where history happened.
So share with us, what was your favorite place? Maybe was there a favorite place in Poland when you went doing your research that you would maybe recommend maybe people to travel and see?
No, Poland, we didn't deviate too much.
Okay.
We went to Warsaw, and Warsaw we stayed in the Sofitel Hotel in 2022 it was. And as soon as we came out of the hotel, just for a stroll, a military procession or some exercise was in progress. We went there, we saw the military giving salute to the unknown soldier, etc. And soon after that, the park there was so beautiful with huge trees and whatnot. So we started walking there, and all of a sudden I saw a placard, Saxon Gardens. And immediately something rang in me, and Saxon Gardens. That Marie Curie used to cut across Saxon Gardens to go to her school. And then I started asking people, is it the place where Marie Curie used to work? But luckily they knew who Marie Curie was, but nothing more about her, but it's all right. And then two young PhD students, they were walking, and then I asked them, they said, we don't know much about Marie Curie, but this is Saxon Gardens. But then I immediately asked him, would you know where Novolopki Street is? Novolopki Street is where she was raised. She spent her primary education and all that from a house in Novolopki Street. I asked them, do you know where Novolopki Street? They said, what do you mean we live there? Come on, we'll take you there. And they took us. And they said 20 minutes, but it took an hour and 20 minutes. And we went there. And we stood right in front of the place where Marie Curie spent her childhood. The building has been demolished, etc., but that was the place. And there was a bonus for us. And then somebody came out of the house and we asked him, he said, yes, this is the place where Marie Curie was raised and all that. And then we talked, and he was also interested in science. And then he said, this street is called the Nobel Street. Why? He said, just go down the street, there is another Nobel laureate's place is there, and his name is Rod Blatt. Rod Blatt was a great scientist who who participated in the Manhattan Project but quit it later, and he got a Nobel Prize for Peace in '95. And we discovered that. We went there and stood at the very place where Rothblatt lived. So that was exciting for us. Right? And so this way, we have so many things, you know. Yeah.
So your travels were very successful, and your trip to France as well, and you're glad
Of course.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's very important to see those places, to experience.
I get thrilled when I see those such places.
So your book is full of beautiful little stories about Marie Curie. Can you share what was your favorite, or was there a favorite part of her life that you would like to share with us, or favorite secret about her life?
No. Yeah, everything is so important to me, you know.
Okay.
No, I can't say this is better, that is better, and things like that. But it was good. But the struggle she went, you know, the agony and ecstasy. Ecstasy, she discovered radioactivity. Ecstasy, she found radium. Ecstasy, she separated radium. And chemists challenged, you separated radium is okay, but we want its properties. Show us its properties. What is its atomic number, etc. She did that. Single-handedly she did that, and she conducted, according to Einstein, one of the most dangerous experiments in science was conducted by Marie Curie for 4 years in the separation of radium, and she established the properties, etc., etc. So these are, and in the book contains more than 100 anecdotes and incidents that happened, but
every reader can enjoy. Beautiful. Out of curiosity, I would like to ask you also what it's like writing in 2 languages, the same book, the same story. And how long did it take you to do that?
No, the entire project took about 3 years. First I wrote in English, of course, and Kannada came very easily for me because Anu Shivaram has already stated one of my famous quotes, that Kannada comes from my heart and English comes from my brain. So writing in Kannada is so easy for me because you can take liberties. I can't take liberties with the English language. It's not mine. It's not mine. When I want to take some liberties, something pinches. Oh, am I doing it right? Oh, is it grammatically correct? Etc. But when I do it Kannada, I don't care. I can take liberties in Kannada.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because it's very important, especially today as well, for everyone to pick up and learn another language, or to reach out and learn your mother tongue. For us, it's Polish as well. It is very important to remember about learning your languages as well and continue. What I would like to ask you also is, if you were to meet Marie Curie, what would you like to ask her? What would you ask her?
I would not ask anything. I would touch her feet. I'm nothing for her. In fact, I would have done it even if I had met her granddaughter, Helen Langevin. Helen Joliot Langevin is the name. She's only 98 years old today. And we tried everything on earth to meet her. It was not possible. Once when we went, she was away holidaying somewhere else and we couldn't meet. And during our recent trip in September, we tried our very best. And she wanted to attend the book launch in Paris on September 22nd. She had sent words to somebody that she would attend, but that day it rained, and she was 98. She was, and she didn't make it. But even if I had met Helen Langevin, I would have touched her feet and said, "That's a blessing."
That's wonderful. Are you thinking of writing another book, or if you would be doing this, who would you be thinking of? Who would be next?
My publisher wants me to do is, this book came out in a totally different format from the rest of my
The previous
books.
ones, yes.
And Srinivasa Ramanujan is selling very well in India, my book. And he wants me to recast the book in this format, with more pictures, more anecdotes, more color and all that. So I may do that.
Okay, that's you've got a plan for yourself.
If there is a plan.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. I would like to also mention that your book today, all the proceeds, but generous of your heart, to science, to all of us for writing about those important people so we can all learn about them. But I just would like to also mention that the proceeds from the sale of the book are going to McGrath Foundation.
And one other thing I want to reveal is that I have not asked my publisher to pay even a cent royalty. Or anything that is generated out of my book is going to some charity or the other.
Yeah. And that's the wonderful thing about you and your work.
For example, 100 copies of the book were given to the Warsaw Museum so that they could sell and keep the profits or do whatever. And 100 copies were given to the Curie museum in Warsaw, in Paris. And the most important thing is we donated 100 copies of Newton, Isaac Newton, to his birthplace in Woolsthorpe Manor in UK. And we sent 100 copies and we wanted to officially hand over the copies and do all those things, but for pictures and all that. By the time we went there, they had already sold half the number of books. They were gone. And then we did a formality. We stood in front of the apple tree and we took some pictures, videos and all that. And then when we returned to India 2 weeks later, the secretary informed us that all the books have been sold. So all the 100 copies are gone. So this is what we are doing, you know.
It is a very beautiful and very generous gesture to do. So thank you so much. And I would like to ask if anyone in the audience would like to ask Srinivas any questions. Any questions?
Any plan to translate this in Polish language?
Or should we be translating this to the Polish language? Is that supposed to be a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, but I don't know Polish.
I know Polish. Are you saying this is a task for me for the upcoming few months?
We'll say the offer is open.
Oh, thank you so much. Who else would like to ask Srinivas any questions?
Srinivas, I think we all grew up knowing a little bit about Marie Curie. Some of it was completely wrong, like she was French. I'm just wondering about what, before you started the project, you knew about Marie Curie, and whether, when you got going on the project, you actually discovered things which debunked your original ideas or really surprised you.
There were quite a few things happened. You know, when I started writing the book, she was a saint in science, a scientific saint. That's what we had heard, especially after reading the book by her daughter Eve Curie. Eve Curie wrote the first ever biography of Marie Curie. Because soon after her mother's death, she didn't want others to adulterate her life or biography by stories. So she wrote the first ever biography. And if you read the first ever biography by Eve Curie, of Marie Curie, you will get a picture that she is a saint. So even I had a book. I wrote a Kannada book long ago, and in that Kannada book I have pictured her as a saint, saintess or whatever you want to call her. But you know what happened in 95 or 2000, the Bibliothèque of France, the National Library of France, they released all the correspondence of Marie Curie to public. That was made public by Helen, the granddaughter. She made all the correspondence of Marie Curie public, and when people went through that correspondence, so many stories came up. And one of the stories that came up was, she was brilliant in science, okay, but she suffered like an ordinary woman. She suffered love. she suffered friendship. She went through all the phases, and some of her love affairs came into public. And one of the she loved 3 people in her life. One was called Casimir during her youth. She couldn't marry because of the class disparity. She was from a poorer class and he was from a rich class, and that marriage didn't take place. But that fellow was a brilliant mathematician. He became a brilliant mathematician of Poland, Casimir. So then she loved Curie, Pierre Curie, that materialized, that they had 2 children, Nobel Prizes, etc., etc. But unfortunately, I think about 9 years or 10 years after their wedding, he met with an accident and he was gone in no time. And afterwards, she fell in love with one of the students of her husband. His name is Paul Langevin. He was also a brilliant scientist. Right? And that didn't materialize, that nothing happened out of that, only a big scandal broke. And that scandal went to such an extent that Paul Langevin and the editor of a newspaper stood for a duel in one of the parks in Paris. They stood with their revolvers to shoot each other. And there was a referee as well, and he did the countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And after the last count, that editor of the newspaper thought, after all, he's such a great scientist, and why should I aim at him? And he put his gun down, he put his revolver down, and looking at that, Paul Langevin put his revolver down. Right? And it ended. But one of the most strangest things is that Paul Langevin's grandson married Mary's granddaughter. Helen. That was Helen. Mary's granddaughter was Helen. She's still living. She married the grandson of Paul Langevin. And that's why she gets the name Helen Joliot Langevin.
So who says you can't write romance novels?
I was thinking the same thing. Maybe this is some new genre for you to discover.
Yeah, so you read that. All this is in the book. Please read the book. You will see all that.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. I just wanted to also mention that this beautiful book obviously was for sale, and I think if any of you needs to purchase the book, will be able to purchase. And also Scriveners will be available to sign your book without any problem at the end of the room. So thank you so much for that. That was very lovely. And yes, if you'd like to say a few words?
No, I will do a formal vote of thanks.
Beautiful.
It's not finished yet.
We just... Don't. Come back, please do come back and take your seats. We have... We have some experiencing technical issues.
Hello. Yeah. No, I had a formal vote of thanks to give and a PowerPoint, and I don't think it's going to work. So now, let's thank the 3 smart girls who helped us with as the masters of ceremony. And I request Professor Hatan to hand over a small memento to each of them, please. No, hello. And hello. So, whatever we are giving them today were given to us at the Warsaw Museum, and they saw the pretty pictures of these girls and said, this is our gift to these girls. And so we are handing it over to them. So, Chitra and Sujata and Pavana. And take a photo. And you know, this would not have been possible if Dr. Karl Kluzinski had not helped us. And as soon as the book was released, I took the book to him and showed it to him, and then asked him, and he had to come today, but due to some commitments he did not. But he was gracious enough to write to the Polish club and ask them to give the venue to us. And so we thank Dr. Karl for his gracious act. And then here we met Carolina and Evelina. They helped us. You know, you can't imagine how much help they have given us. And Evelina today has done the author's talk, and is you did that, Tom Cowan is no. We asked Tom Cowan. You know, Tom Cowan is one of the great filmmakers, and he shot one of the Kannada movies about 50 or 60 years ago, and even today he is active making movies, and we request Tom Cowan to hand over this memento. And Carolina, please.
Where's Carolina?
She's out at the front desk.
Oh, she's at the front desk. Carolina.
Would you call her? Okay, please. And now here is Tom, please. Please tell somebody. And so thank you for coming. And then one of the persons who gave the video message, Pierre Anhori, has his birthday today. Let him wish him a great birthday. And then 2 of our volunteers, people who have helped us through and through today, it's a special day for them, and in spite of that they have come here. And one is Pratima Natarajan, who is celebrating her birthday today. Happy birthday to Pratima. And Radhika and Mohan are celebrating their wedding anniversary today. So they have overlooked all that and come here to be with us. So thank you very much. And as this...
Please call Usha for 1 minute.
Okay, now... Thanks for coming. Yeah. Yeah, we did that. Yeah, Rishan and Shreya. So they were great. So thank you very much. And so the restaurant is open, gentlemen, and the bar is open, and the books are available for sale. And as I told you, the entire proceeds will go to the McGrath Foundation. And already some people, I think as many as 12 or 13 have prepaid. They paid they paid online, and you're most welcome to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank, of course, Srinivas for today's and beautiful event, and his wife Usha. Thank you again, everyone, for coming today, including our special guests and volunteers who've done such a great job pulling this all together. Before we go, can I please ask, who would you like to ask to your special guest for a photo to come up on the stage? Yeah. So we would like to thank everyone and wishing everyone a wonderful afternoon. Wszystkiego dobrego, dziękujemy uprzejmie. Thank you.
You opted to be with us. I thank you very much, and such an attendance is really humbling. So thank you. We had distinguished speakers today. Professor Jonathan Bland-Hawthorne, Helen Lyne, Rajni, Anu Shivaram. They have spoken so nicely about my book, and I was really amazed that my book deserves so many kind words. Also present were Pawan Luthra, the editor of Indian Link, then Professor Frank Nicholas, an expert on Charles Darwin, and Tom Cowan, a great filmmaker. Thank you all for your presence, and you have made my day. We are fortunate to get this grand venue for the book launch, and I thank Dr. Carl of the University of Sydney for this. As soon as I approached him, he recommended us to Carolina Barry, and who immediately agreed to give this venue for our use free of charge. So I thank Dr. Carl, Carolina, and also the president of the club, Richard Borisiewicz, for this. And Evelina, also of the club, has actively participated in today's proceedings, and a big thank you to her as well. As we have told before, all the proceeds of the sale of the copies go to the McGrath Foundation, and we sincerely thank all those who have donated either online or through the sales today. Thank you very much. Now to the writing and production of the book itself. When the first draft of the book was ready, we went to Warsaw and met Alexandra Grabowska and Milka Skalska of the Maria Sklodowska-Curie Museum, which is in fact the birthplace of Marie Curie. And we met these two ladies who led us through the museum and explained everything and even read the draft. And then when the book was about to be printed, as at her request, we sent the book to Alexandra, and believe it or not, she read the book word by word and offered many comments and changes, and most of them were incorporated. So thank you, Alexandra. It boosted my confidence that the book could be printed. It did not end there. When the book was finally printed, these two ladies launched the book in Warsaw in presence of a distinguished audience, and the whole entire event was streamlined, and I was also interviewed on the Polish TV. Off we went to Paris, where we met Pierre Anhory, the public relations officer, and Renard, the director of the museum, Curie Museum. It was a holiday in France, but still these two gentlemen opened the museum for us and took us inside and showed us all the equipment and other things used by Marie, her dress, and then her own office room, her lab, everything was shown to us. And then these two people, and also the two from Warsaw, wrote a generous preface to the book. So I thank them profusely. Music Curie also arranged the launch of the book, and during the launch, the director of the Curie Institute, Alain Pusey, was present, and he handed over to me the souvenir of the centenary of the Institute Curie, and showing Marie Curie and Regard, the founders of the institute. And I show here the souvenir medal they presented to me. It was as if I had won a great prize. I owe a lot to my group members at the Writing NSW, an association of writers. I belong to the open genre group, and when I wrote the book, I read it out to its members for nearly 2.5 years, and they all listened to me carefully and offered many corrections and suggestions. I'm indebted to every one of them. And some of the members were here today, and you may recognize Helen, who was one of the speakers too. Now to the editing of my book. Here you find the pictures of two ladies who helped me too much with their editing. One is Malati Bhatt, who took care of the Kannada version, and the other is Shubha Shrikant, who read the English version and offered a lot of changes and suggestions. This couple, Narsimha and Veena, are my good friends, and they have read everything I have written, and I can openly say that nothing I have written passes on to the editors or the papers or anybody, or the publishers for that matter, if these two people have not okayed it. Thank you, Narsimha and Veena. Here you find Anand, who designed the book in an excellent manner, Lakshmi, who took care of the layout and arranged for the printing, and Bharati for the shipping and other things connected with the book. And also you see Pranesh, the head of the Prism Group, and he's the publisher. These girls are not new to you. You have seen them today. First you see Pavana, who has been a great help for us, and she was the one that helped us through Qantas, of course, to ship copies from Bangalore to Sydney free of charge. Thank you, Pavana. And the others, Chitra and Sujata, who have also done the emceeing job today. Thanks to them. These are my friends from Sydney who have helped me throughout the book production and the launch today. In the first picture, you see Nataraj and Anu Shivaram, and Anu Shivaram spoke today, and Nataraj has helped me throughout, and he has videographed the launch of the book on Darwin 3 years ago and also today, and Ravi Kiran, who helped him in this task, also deserves our thanks. And in this central picture, you see Nagendra, who has helped us in many ways, and these girls, these ladies, these 5 ladies, they have been helping me today in an excellent manner, and you have seen them today. A big thank you to all of them. You may recollect Anu talking about taking the message of Marie Curie to the rural children in India who may not have access to all the information, and the task has already begun, and my own friends have bought number of copies of the book to be distributed among the rural schools in India. And here you see the book being distributed among 3 of the schools in the district of Kolar in the state of Karnataka. Here are the people that made it possible. You see the picture of K.R. Srinivasan, one of the professors from the university, New York University, and also sometimes the dean in the university. And he was gracious enough to buy 120 copies of the book, 100 to be distributed in Kolar, that's one of the districts in Karnataka, and 20 in the United States. And then another anonymous buyer who bought about 20 to 25 copies for distribution somewhere. And we would request people to come up with this nice gesture and sponsor as many copies as possible to be distributed among the rural schools in India. And the next one to fill the gap here could be you. Thanks again.